Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Buffalo-Plaid Breakfast. We have an exciting episode today and guest speakers coming in today, so it's going to be a lot of action. We're going to be discussing ransomware, some historical events that we've gone through, live stories from Hunt Brand, who is a vCIO for our team here. Hunt, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Jan, how are you this morning?
Good morning. As usual, I am blessed, and I am enjoying a special treat. Tony Miller, our Chief Information Officer from Integris, sent me a bag of Kaladi coffee roasters, roasted coffee beans. My wife ground them up last night, put them in our coffee pot, and this morning I am enjoying the wonderful aroma and stylings of the Kaladi coffee roasters out of Denver, Colorado, which they actually started in 1986 in Alaska. And then their chief roaster, the guy moved to Colorado and started his own roasting company. So thank you, Tony. It's quite delicious. Not as strong as my usual espresso blend in the morning, but I'll make up for the strength by quantity.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's always great receiving gifts, and it sounds like they've been moving a little south, so they may be in your neck of the woods once they get sick of Colorado cold. So
that would be
well, Hunt.
amazing.
Thank you for joining the show today. Tell us a little about yourself.
So I've been an IT guy my entire career. I've been in the business for about 35 years. I used to do software development, and I ran some software management for an international company for many years and bounced around doing that. And then I've been doing security for about the last 5 years. So been a geek all my life and love it.
Well, and don't let Hunt sell himself short. He's been one of the best responders to incident response and ransomware that I've ever dealt with. So Hunt, thank you for joining the show today. As we kind of just start talking about ransomware, I know we always talk about these things. You hear it all over the place, but it truly is something that's not going away anytime soon. Jan, what is the definition of ransomware?
Yeah, ransomware is a type of malicious software. It's designed to block access to a computer in the system or data. And typically they'll encrypt it until a ransom is paid to the attacker. And then they provide you with some decryption keys. And there's some serious impacts to organizations that get hit. There's operational disruption. The average downtime for ransomware is about 2 weeks. That's the average. There are some that are less, which are few, and there are a lot that are longer. And it really depends on what they've got in their infrastructure and how well they're able to recover from it. A lot of these sooner recoveries tend to be the ones that paid the ransom. The financial loss, beyond the ransom itself, you're going to face costs related to the incident response, system restoration, legal fees, forensics costs, and potential fines. Then there's data loss. If backups aren't available or if they've been compromised, then you might permanently lose data. There's reputational damage, and then there's also legal and regulatory consequences, as I mentioned. There could be some serious consequences that cost huge amounts of money because of notifications that need to happen to people that have been impacted. Think about the national data breach that's happening now. There's notifications happening continually. I got one yesterday from one of my monitoring companies telling me that my social security number had been exposed in the breach.
Yeah. And the monitoring isn't free, but the other thing you mentioned, the downtime, one of the things that many people don't think about when they're doing this is that salary you have to pay out during that downtime to your employees. They don't just quit working because the business isn't working, and you mentioned the downtime of 2 weeks. That's nearly $3,000 salary on average per employee that you're having to pay out during this downtime while the business is not able to function as it normally would. So, there's a lot of things that people don't think about when they're talking about these things. And they're so impactful on the business. But, how do they normally come in? How do they start? Let's start from that beginning.
Yeah, there's several very common vectors. You got phishing emails. They'll trick an employee into clicking a link and downloading something to infect their computers. They exploit vulnerabilities, unpatched software, remote desktop protocol that's open to the internet, firewall ports that are misconfigured or inadvertently left open. Something was decommissioned and they didn't change the rules on the firewall, and now they add something new that now, where there was a one-to-one connection to something secure, that one-to-one connection is now pointing to something that's insecure. Malvertising, where you're visiting a website, an ad pops up, and that if there's a 0-day vulnerability inside of your browser, it could immediately start executing something. Or if you click on it and you download something because of that malvertising or that malicious advertising, that would be a drive-by download type thing. And then infected removable media. Surprisingly, this is still a thing. People will just drop infected USB drives out there and somebody will go, hey, what's this do? Plug it into their computer. Mind-boggling. And then there's, 0-day vulnerabilities in VPNs, firewalls, browsers, all kinds of other software that's internet connected. And unless those things are being dealt with on a regular basis, it's an inroad for these guys to be able to come in.
Yeah. And I think, the easiest way to say is how they get in is any way possible. Any way that you're getting data into your network, there are ways for them to use those same inroads, as you mentioned, to take over, infect, and, give us all a bad day.
Yeah.
And those bad days as they start, they kind of go through stages, phases, and that side of things as it blends through it. And as we continue kind of to set up, where we're going to bring Hunt in to talk about some real world events on this is, let's go through those steps real quick and kind of how that propagates throughout the network once it's in, and how do we get to that endpoint?
Yeah, so ransomware pretty much always starts with an initial access. Somehow a threat actor gains access or entry into a network. It could be somebody's credentials were exposed on a leak, such as the National Public Data thing, where somebody reused a password. So you got the same username and password being used in multiple places. Phishing emails, exploiting vulnerabilities, or as we described, getting in via some kind of defective software or a link. And then the next thing that's done is command and control. They'll install software and connect persistent connections so that they have the ability to get back into your network and your systems whenever they want to. And they'll generally employ several of these methods. And oftentimes it's legitimate software, remote access software that we all use and is part of our daily lives to help support our clients. So it flies under the radar because, hey, this is legitimate software. They seek to escalate privileges then by finding any kind of credential that they can on the network. They'll enumerate the network to find what's there so that they can move laterally into higher value targets. Then they start collecting data and exfiltrating that data to their various servers that they've got staged out on the internet. One of the more common things that's happening now is they're using public, very reputable sources, AWS buckets, Microsoft OneDrive, Dropbox. They're storing their stuff there because organizations aren't blocking those. And then finally, once they've got what they've determined is their payloads, they'll encrypt and they'll just destroy your data. If they can get to your backups, they will destroy them so that you can't restore from backup and you've got to rely on them. And Jeremy, you're muted. That was interesting. Hunt, are you there?
Yeah, we lost you, Jeremy.
Jeremy's audio went away. Oh, and then, obviously once they do the encryption and destruction, then there's some form of ransom demand that shows up. It's one of the most insidious is where they start spitting pages out of your printer, every printer in your business with the ransom demand. We've been on a few cases that have had that.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. No idea. Microphone decided it needed a break, I guess. So can't blame it there.
Before a holiday weekend.
Exactly. Yeah, as you were saying, kind of they drop that ransomware note as they're leaving, right? That last thought out the door, say, oh, by the way, here's how to get a hold of us. So, that's kind of the path that we take in these normally, and we see. But, what I would like to start is from Hunt, hearing how it goes past that, right? Now that you've got that ransomware note, how does that go? So this is where, Hunt, I want to hear from you on this one.
All right, great. So appreciate it, guys. Great summary on how they get in and what they do. So what I'm hoping to do today is let people feel a little bit of what it's like to actually go through an event. So what I want you to do now is imagine that you've got an event, you got hit, You're like, oh my gosh, I see this ransom note. Nobody can get to their machines. People are freaking out. Can't make a phone call. What's going on? So what I want to do is walk you through the phases from that point to the point where you get back into business. That middle ground that you always hear about, but a lot of people don't get the war stories. And just before I dive into it, I want you to know Jeremy and Jan both have a ton of experience in this area. Jan and I, especially because we worked together for so long, have done many cases over the years. So these guys are all expert, but they're certainly better at it technically than I am. And Jan and Jeremy can help you figure out how to stay safe and help prevent it. So what happens? Let's put up that. I want to show you the phases. So these are the kind of phases you go through. So once you get hit, depending on what business you're in, you have to notify people. You need to notify your staff and internally, but depending on if you're regulated, like if you are, for example, a bank or a credit union, you might have to file a suspicious activity report. You might have to notify the FDIC, the state banking regulators. There's a bunch of different things you might have to do depending on your business. So what you want to do is figure out how you need to notify and know that ahead of time based on your business. And one of the ways to get help with that is to get what's called a breach coach. And this is a thing people don't think about, but you really want to get a really good attorney who knows about cyber policy, knows what the rules are in your state, what the feds want you to do. So you want to get a breach coach engaged quite quickly into the process. And what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through some of these boxes. So after you've done the notification, you want to get, we're going to do an assessment. So my team's going to get involved. Your insurance company is going to call us in. And we're going to check out your environment with the technical guys pretty quickly. We're going to look at your servers, your firewalls, your key systems you need. And one of the biggies we're going to be looking for is, do you have good backups? Because that's the key factor of how you recover from a hit, is if you have good backups. And then going forward, we don't want anybody to touch anything. So at this point, imagine that the three of us are on a call with you because you just got hit, and I'm going to walk you through what you and your leadership team are hearing. And usually I request that the IT guys bring in the owner, the CEO. We want the senior team in that room when we're talking about this because it's a big deal and everybody needs to know what's going on. So at this point, I say, okay, it's nice to meet you. Sorry, meeting under these circumstances. Look around the room, everybody on this call, and usually on this call, we'll have some of our technical leads that are going to run the event on with us. We're all one team here, and our goal is to get you back whole as quickly as possible. So there are a couple ground rules we need to put out right away. First of all, don't touch anything from here on in. Our technical team now is in control of your environment. Don't turn anything on or off. That's going to help with forensics, so we'll talk about that. And you don't want to be saying things like, hey, I've got hit, I've got ransomware, I've got a virus in my system. If anybody asks you what's going on with IT and why nothing's working, you say, well, we have a cyber event, and we'll let you know when we know more. You're under no obligation to tell everybody all the details. There's legal reasons that will impact you if you don't say cyber event or security event. And if you're a regulatory, like a bank or a credit union, you want to designate who on the team is going to be reporting all of this back up to the board. So the next step is to engage that breach coach, and good cyber insurance is key for that. Your breach coach comes in, and the reason you want the breach coach right away in the middle of this conversation, we're reaching out to them, is so that the breach coach will engage our team on your behalf. And what that does is it gives you legal coverage. So if we find something embarrassing or we really don't want to talk about that, the breach coach is between us and you and the public, and they can give you client attorney privilege. So that's another reason you want to get a good breach coach. And we work with the top guys in the business. So then the next thing is we're going to isolate. We talk about the whole process here. We're going to isolate your system. We're going to deploy our tools into all your environment to search for the bad guys and get rid of their software. We're going to isolate your system because we don't want you getting out anymore, and we don't want the bad guys getting in anymore. Then we're going to talk about threat actor communications. How do we talk to the bad guys? Ransomware payments, and restore. So let's talk about the initial steps. We're going to say the containment of it. What isolate means is that the bad guys need to get to your system to see what's going on and make more threats and more damage. So what we want to do is isolate it so we can protect it. Then the technical team will create a new, safer environment. And as we go through the recovery and we know systems are safe after our systems have checked them out, we'll slowly move them into that good environment, and we'll triage each PC. Then the recovery after we get you restored, depending on if we have to pay the ransom or the backups work, we'll get you boots on the ground. We'll get staff flown in or from local areas that know what to do. We'll join as well.
Hey, Hunt.
Yep.
So on that isolation piece, just to be clear, one of the main reasons why things are getting isolated is, remember, the threat actor, as I described earlier, they're putting in persistence. They want to maintain their level of access and control in your systems. And if they're in your systems, in your email, they're monitoring all this stuff that's going on and all the activity to try to get them back into business, because they know that they've stirred up a hornet's nest now. So the goal of the remediation team here is to cut off any kind of access that those bad guys have, so that they don't know what the good guys are doing.
Good point, Jan. That's why we do it, and it's also to prevent them from doing more as well. So part of what we're going to do is collect forensics. So what usually happens when we start this process, everybody's in a rush to just turn things back on. And so what we have to tell everybody is, don't touch a thing. This is a crime scene. Think of a murder scene almost, because they're trying to murder your business. And so we have to collect as much evidence as we can before anything is touched. And what we do is the team collects, using specialized tools, forensics evidence on all the devices. And we ship that off to our forensics team. And these are guys that I don't know how they do what they do. They're like these super uber smart scientists in the back room. And they go through all these logs and these files. And they usually can figure out how the bad guy got in, where they landed, where they went to, what they did, what they sent. They can figure all of that out. And there's two reasons you want that. One is legally, in case of lawsuit. But the other main reason is you want to know, how did this happen? So we make darn sure we plug that hole, right? So we want to collect that forensics at the same time. After the forensics is done and in parallel, then the team starts triaging your systems. So we look for what's called IOC, or indication of compromise. And if we see anything that indicates that machine might be corrupted, our recommendation is you wipe it clean and restore. So in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of cruise through some of the other steps. So law enforcement, your breach coach will tell you if you need to inform them and when, like the FBI. Crisis communications is key. How you talk to people and who you talk to. Again, the breach coach will help you with that. I want to talk a little bit about a threat actor communication before we run too long here. So a threat actor communication means I'm talking to the bad guys. So while the team is trying to figure out what's happened and whether we have a good backup, I need to stall the bad guys whilst we give the team time to figure that out. And the threat actors, depending on what group it is, and strangely enough, people don't realize this, but there's literally well-known groups in this business. They actually brand themselves. They have a reputation they try to keep. And so we kind of know these guys. And all of us in this business, Jeremy, Jan, and I, and every other company that has incident response, we all work together. We openly share information with each other on what we're learning about the bad guys and their techniques, because this is a war against bad guys and we're all in it together. So based on a threat actor, I can then tell whether they're going to be in a rush, whether they're kind of laid back, how hard they are to negotiate with. So I'll send them information and say, hey, I need you to prove to me that you have some of our files, or that you can decrypt them. So we'll send them a file and say, decrypt this. And the bad guy will send back the decrypted file to prove that he's got it. And that usually takes a day or two. Meanwhile, the guys are still seeing if they can restore. A lot of the times now, and people don't realize this, bad guys will copy off all your files as the first thing they do, and then they'll encrypt your environment. It's called exfiltration. So what they want to do is say, even if you can get a backup to restore, we're going to still publish your data on the dark web unless you paid a ransom. So again, the forensics can maybe tell us how much they got, but the threat actors will also usually send us a list of what they claim they have. So think about this question for a second. What do you think is the average demand for a ransom? So just think about, what do you think the threat actors are asking for now? On average, remember, that's small companies, big ones, and everything else.
Yeah.
So the average demand, you have 500,000, 2 million, 5 million, 8 million. It's all over the place. The average demand right now is $5 million. And the average payment out of that demand is usually about 2 million. Now remember, this includes very big companies and big payout. But most of the demand we see. Go ahead.
So I've looked at a lot of these cyber insurance policies from our various clients that send those in to review. Do I have what I need? Most of these cyber insurance policies are for $1 million. You're saying the average payout is 2?
The average payout is 2, but remember, Jan, that includes the really big ones you hear about where they're literally paying like 20 million and 10 million and stuff like that. Most of the
Wow.
ones we see for the small to medium sized companies are in the million range, sometimes $1.5 million, sometimes 800,000. Very rarely is it under 5. So yeah, that's part of the deal.
And that brings up an interesting point about these bad guys with what they do when they're doing their reconnaissance inside of your network. They'll pull your insurance policies. They'll pull your company financials, so they know how much to ask for.
Yep, they will. And so so we do the threat actor communication. If we decide we have to pay the ransom, then we work out with you. We introduce you to a partner that knows how to do payments on Bitcoin. We have to run what's called some reports to make sure that they're not on the terrorist list, because sometimes if you're going to pay bad guys, you have to check to make sure they're not associated with a terrorist list, because if they are, you're not allowed to pay. So there's a lot of steps that go in a threat actor. We don't have time to dive into it. And then the next step is you get your business restored. Either the backups worked, or you paid the ransom and you got the decryptor and you decrypted your files. Then the forensics investigation usually takes several weeks after you're back in business for the final findings, but they will present that to your attorney first for your protection, and then they'll review it to you. And then the security assessment and findings is what you want to look for after that, because what we normally do in our cases is we then come in afterwards and we check out your environment now that you're back whole and you're back where you think you're going to be running from now on. Now remember, the security team brings in a bunch of really powerful kick butt tools. We're going to leave those on until you are completely done and your IT department or your IT group is ready to take over. But what we do then is say, let's have an assessment of your current running environment so you can decide what you want to keep, what you want to add to keep you safer moving forward. And then you want to definitely implement those controls and processes. And that's where, again, Jeremy and Jan are the experts at helping you get set up like that. So we kind of went quickly through that overall process, but I wanted to get you guys an idea of what that feels like and what you have to go through, and maybe tie some of this back to your incident response plan. You might see steps in there and go, oh, that's why we do that. And the finding out what you have and where your backups are and who the key players are, that can really slow down a recovery. If you have a good plan, it can really speed up your recovery. And as Jan pointed out before, this is a long period. You're not making any money at the time. Everybody's under stress. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Your team has to get rest. You have to force yourself to take breaks. It is a brutal time that you're going to go through, but we get you through it. We're expert at it. We do this all day long. And so you have a guide through the end, and then you get back in business afterwards. So I ran a little long, guys, but that's the run through.
No, thank you, Hunt, for that detailed story on it. It truly is, living it, seeing it from our perspective, and all the guys with their plaid capes out fighting through the crusade, it's amazing watching that team come together. It really is. But like you said, until you experience it live firsthand, you don't understand that chaos, that concern, that stress. And there's nothing we can do to prepare you for it. It truly is that side of things. What we can do is we can offer our advice, some best practices that we've seen experience to slow this process down, to impede it as much as possible so you never have to see the capes. That's the ultimate goal from our side, is that we never have to, do that side of things, and you never have to go through those steps. So Jan, from your side, what are some of the best things we can do to make sure we never get to that point?
Yeah, and these are basic standard best practices. Make sure that you have regular secure backups. Frequently back up your data and make sure that it's immutable, meaning it can't be altered by you or anybody else until whatever expiration period has been set on that immutability. And store it in an offline manner or in a secure cloud environment, something that the threat actor can't get to. Something new that the threat actors have been doing is when they've been exfiltrating data, if they can access your cloud data, they can do that when you don't even notice anymore. So that information needs to be kept very secure. Email security. Be very cautious with email attachments and links. Use spam filters and make sure employees are aware of what phishing attacks are like. Software and firmware updates. Keep all of your software, including operating systems, applications, hardware, up to date. And if something is end of life, replace it. Don't sit there running with something that is going to be vulnerable. incredible amounts of systems out there connected to the internet that are end of life, that have no ability to patch the known vulnerabilities in them. And they're out there on the internet right now, just waiting for a threat actor to find them. Use antivirus, anti-malware, managed detection and response software. Make sure it's regularly updated. Make sure it's updated in a staggered ring-like fashion, not updated all at once like CrowdStrike. And make sure that you're using firewalls and endpoint protection on your machines. Have access controls. Limit who can access what. Remember, the threat actors are looking to elevate to the highest level of permission that they can. Well, if they get into Susie Secretary's PC, hopefully the various tools that we got in there will detect the noise that they're making while they're in there before they have an opportunity to laterally move to somebody else's machine that has more permissions and that they can now get to more important data. Make sure that you're using two-factor authentication. It's an extra layer of security that, frankly, everything should have these days. And if whatever you're using doesn't support it, replace it. Use phishing-resistant security like FIDO keys, Windows Hello, or passwordless technologies. Make sure any kind of remote access is being done securely, again, with two-factor authentication or a zero-trust network, SASE networks, and train your employees. And then, of course, make sure that you have an incident response plan that's regularly updated, regularly tested, because bad things do happen. We have to be right all the time. The threat actor only has to be right once.
Yeah. And that planning is key, and talking and discussing and thinking about the next steps. There's a lot that goes into it. Regulatory compliances within your business. Those are constantly changing. And we could do a whole show on those as we talk and get some information out there to you guys on that side of things. There's just so much that go into these. And, like we've said, our goal is to keep, that team off the field so they never even get a chance to play. But it happens. It happens way more frequently than we like. It happens way more frequently than anybody in the industry likes. So the goal is to stop it. But we have to be prepared for those. Couple housekeeping things before we start wrapping up. Integris Inspire has a couple more events throughout the end of the year. If you get an opportunity to join us, we would love to hear from you guys, discuss these things and meet some more of the team. Would be awesome. As usual, if you enjoyed the show, you want to hear more, like, share, get it out there, ring the bell, do all of those things and subscribe. I mean, it helps us know that we're getting into your guys' daily lives. And that's our main goal, is just to help you guys find simple things. Look for that one nugget. Hunt, thank you for coming today, first off. But, do you have any parting words that you want to share on these incidents?
Sure. So the key things to take away, guys, is backups are key. Make sure you have good backups that are safe, not just backing up to another PC or server on the platform that they can get to. Good cyber insurance is also very key. With that, you get our team, you get legal teams, you get all the kind of help you need. So make sure you have a cyber policy, not just a rider. A lot of insurance companies say, oh yeah, we do cyber, and they put a rider on, which is just not good at all. It'll take longer to recover than you think. Even the small cases, when we find out they stopped it halfway through, it still takes weeks. Because there's no such thing as 2 weeks on your back. It's always 2 weeks plus. So just remember that. Imagine you cannot ship product, cannot provide service for 2 weeks. That's a big hit on average. And, basic thing, have a printout of all your contacts right now. Because if you get hit, none of your PCs work, none of your servers work, there's no way to find anybody. Have a printout of your vendors, your clients, your key contacts. Have that available to all the key leaders. Next steps, implement the advice these guys are telling you. Jeremy and Jan are pros at this. They know how to protect an environment. Implement that. As an IT guy, what I tell guys at the end of our cases is, now that you've seen what happened and you're surviving this because our team got you back and you worked with us and we got this done, don't hold back on the boss now and start demanding what you need for security. As an IT professional, it's your job to demand the right solution, even if you don't think it's going to get paid for, versus putting up with somebody who's not writing the checks when you need it. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's usually what we find when we come in. The IT guy will go, I've been asking for this for months or years. So it's your responsibility to get tough And if we got any leaders listening, listen to your IT guy. You don't want to be talking to me. Look at this room. I'm the guy you never want to see on the other end of the call. Jeremy and Jan are the guys you want to see at the end of the call. So that's my parting advice.
Great parting advice. Again, great show, great chatting with you guys today. And I always leave it to you, Jan, for the final words.
Keep the shields up. They really are out to get you.
Thanks, guys.